The galaxy had grown complacent, or so it believed. Advanced civilizations boasted fleets of sleek, near-invincible ships, weapons of unimaginable energy, and AI commanders capable of predicting outcomes before events unfolded. They assumed superiority, that the species who wielded the oldest and simplest technology could never challenge them. But humans were not bound by assumption, nor did they fear what others feared. On the outskirts of the Koroth expanse, where stars burned faintly and nebulae twisted in silent dances of gas and dust, a human fleet drifted, inconspicuous and patched together from decades of scavenged materials. They carried no advanced shields, no AI navigation systems. No energy weapons that could disintegrate mountains in seconds. Instead, they carried rifles forged by hand, simple kinetic cannons, and missiles that relied not on precision algorithms, but human ingenuity and timing. The galaxy's empires laughed quietly at their audacity. It began with a minor skirmish. A patrol of alien dreadnoughts, sleek and powerful, intercepted the human flotilla, their weapons humming with lethal anticipation. The aliens assumed victory, ready to annihilate what they deemed an obsolete threat. The humans, however, did not panic. They observed the fleet's formation, analyzed firing patterns with a speed and clarity that no AI could replicate, and struck with uncanny precision. The kinetic rounds tore through the dreadnought's shields at angles and velocities that rendered conventional targeting calculations useless. Explosions shimmered across the void, flaring light that illuminated the humans' unflinching faces. The battle escalated, and the galaxy watched, bewildered. Humans moved unpredictably, not by chance but by choice, adapting in real time, improvising strategies that confounded every prediction. Where others relied on power, humans relied on understanding. Where others relied on technology, humans relied on intuition. Every outmoded weapon, every handcrafted device became a tool of precision, a vector of ingenuity. Entire fleets were stunned to realize that what they had mocked as archaic had been lethal all along. But this was only the beginning. The humans had not come merely to defend themselves, they had come to demonstrate a principle the galaxy had forgotten: technology is only as effective as the mind that wields it. In the dark between stars, a massive alien dread AI, older than many civilizations, monitored the battle. It had analyzed billions of engagements, optimized trillions of responses, yet it could not account for human unpredictability. Every maneuver, every feint, every counterattack defied its calculations. It learned that brute force and predictive algorithms were insufficient when faced with a species that embraced chaos with clarity, improvisation with precision, and courage with intelligence. Humans pressed onward, not out of malice, but out of necessity and curiosity. They explored derelict stations abandoned after centuries of alien warfare, discovered anomalies in collapsing star systems, and improvised solutions that no AI or superweapon could conceive. They repaired worlds using mechanics and tools that seemed archaic yet worked with a simplicity and elegance that rendered complex systems fragile in comparison. Entire planets once considered uninhabitable flourished under their care. And always, humans adapted, never stopping, never hesitating, never relying on machines to think for them, when the largest armada the galaxy had ever assembled attempted to crush the human force. The result was paradoxical. The aliens' overwhelming energy weapons and AI-guided missiles clashed against simple projectiles and human-devised countermeasures that twisted trajectories, redirected energy pulses, and exploited every flaw in over-engineered systems. The humans moved as if in a choreographed dance, each action measured, reactive, and simultaneously creative. Ships that had seemed invincible were crippled, and the armada's confidence eroded in the face of unpredictability. The galaxy began to understand, too late, the lesson humans had embodied for centuries: a weapon is only an extension of the mind, and a species that masters ingenuity, instinct, and adaptability surpasses even the most advanced technology. Where others saw obsolescence, humans saw opportunity. Where others saw limits, humans saw possibility. Their outdated weapons became symbols of defiance, proof that mastery of the mind and courage of the heart could overcome overwhelming odds. In the aftermath, the surviving fleets withdrew, humiliated and astonished. The humans, uncelebrated and quiet, repaired their ships, tended to the wounded, and continued toward the next challenge the galaxy would place before them. They did not boast, did not threaten, did not celebrate. They merely looked to the next impossibility, the next cosmic puzzle to solve, armed with simple tools, sharper minds, and unwavering resolve, and across the void. Civilizations whispered, realizing that the galaxy's assumptions had been flawed. Humans were not bound by the sophistication of weapons or the elegance of AI, they were boundless, fearless, and cunning in ways no one had ever anticipated, and in that quiet reckoning, the universe remembered a truth it had nearly forgotten. Sometimes, the oldest tools wielded by the sharpest minds are enough to change everything. And so, the stars learned that underestimating humans was the galaxy's gravest mistake. The humans did not linger to celebrate their victories, for the galaxy had more challenges waiting, and their attention was drawn to a sector long considered a graveyard of lost colonies and forgotten stars. The Xylan Expanse, a region where space itself seemed to conspire against life, was littered with worlds abandoned after centuries of unnatural catastrophes. Star systems had collapsed, planets had been torn apart by erratic gravitational surges, and entire civilizations had vanished without a trace. Every alien power that had surveyed the area deemed it hopeless, a place where even the most sophisticated technology could not endure. Humans saw it differently. Their ships arrived in a scattered formation, seemingly fragile against the black void, yet coordinated with a precision that belied their patched-together appearance. The humans did not rely on superior weaponry, they relied on observation, experimentation, and relentless adaptation. They studied the gravitational anomalies, measured the residual energy flows, and charted patterns that even the most advanced alien AI had failed to recognize. Their actions were deliberate, almost surgical, as they deployed simple instruments and modified old weapons to stabilize spinning worlds and collapsing atmospheres. Week by week, human ingenuity transformed what had been considered a graveyard into a series of habitable zones. Abandoned planets now rotated in steady orbits, magnetic fields reformed, and thin atmospheres thickened with the careful introduction of stabilizing elements. Alien observers, initially skeptical, began transmitting cautious reports back to their home systems. Unable to comprehend how such primitive methods could achieve results that had eluded advanced fleets for centuries, yet, it was not merely technical skill that distinguished humans, it was their philosophy. Where other species sought control through brute force, humans sought comprehension through curiosity. They approached each disaster not as a threat to be destroyed, but as a problem to be understood. Every adjustment, every intervention, reflected a patience and creativity that no algorithm could simulate. Even the smallest crew member's observation could alter a course of action that would ultimately save an entire planet. Rumors began to spread throughout the galaxy. Stories of humans entering voids where gravity ripped ships apart. Of bipeds stabilizing dying stars with nothing more than careful timing and intuition, reached ears that had never considered them a credible threat. Some dismissed the stories as exaggeration, a myth born of hope or fear. But those who witnessed humans at work, the scouts, the traders, the isolated colonies, could not deny the truth. Humanity's combination of courage, ingenuity, and adaptability made them unpredictable, unstoppable, and in some ways, incomprehensible, and in the quiet moments, between victories and experiments, humans reflected on their successes without pride or hubris. They did not seek admiration, nor did they aim to dominate. They merely pressed forward, driven by a desire to understand, to solve, and to survive. The galaxy, watching from afar, began to sense that something profound was unfolding. Humans were reshaping the rules of engagement not through weapons or fleets, but through intellect, creativity, and the relentless pursuit of understanding. For the first time, civilizations across multiple sectors began to realize that underestimating humans was no longer a trivial mistake. Their outdated weapons, their patched ships, their reliance on intuition over technology, these were not weaknesses. They were the instruments of a species whose defiance and intelligence could outmatch the most advanced powers the galaxy had ever seen, and as the humans prepared to leave the Xylan Expanse, Their quiet work complete, the universe could only watch in stunned silence. The galaxy had seen power measured in fleets, in AI, in weapons of mass destruction, but humans had proven that understanding, adaptability, and ingenuity were forces far more formidable than anyone had imagined. The humans' work in the Xylan expanse had drawn attention, but it had also drawn danger. Ancient sentinels, relics of civilizations long dead, stirred from their eons of dormancy. They had been built to guard secrets, to punish intruders, to ensure that no species could meddle with the fragile balances of the cosmos. For millennia, these constructs had lain dormant, considered myths by even the most technologically advanced societies. Yet the humans, moving with the quiet certainty of those who trust their wits above all else, triggered sensors, bypassed energy fields, and approached forbidden regions that had claimed countless explorers before them. What followed was a dance of ingenuity versus inevitability. Massive constructs, powered by forces incomprehensible to living species, unleashed energy pulses that could obliterate fleets in an instant. Alien commanders watching from distant systems believed the humans doomed, expecting them to be reduced to stardust. But humans adapted instantly. They modified old kinetic cannons to emit energy pulses that counteracted the Sentinels' waves, deployed decoys that simulated entire fleets, and maneuvered in ways that defied prediction. The Sentinels, ancient and unthinking, struggled to interpret a species that refused to follow logic as they understood it. It was not mere improvisation, it was strategy born of perception, anticipation, and relentless courage. Humans observed, learned, and exploited weaknesses that were invisible to the most advanced AI. Each encounter became a testament to their adaptability. While the galaxy had once measured power in weapons, humans measured it in insight, timing, and understanding. Where others had relied on overwhelming force, humans relied on improvisation honed by centuries of necessity and survival against impossible odds. Meanwhile, rumors of their feats spread across star systems, carried by traders, exiles, and the few surviving witnesses. Some civilizations dismissed the stories as legend, unable to accept that a species so primitive in technology could achieve the impossible. Others, however, began to reconsider the meaning of power itself. The human approach, unpredictable, improvisational, and unbound by convention, challenged every assumption. In the quiet voids between stars, entire fleets recalculated strategies, not to confront humans, but to even begin to understand them. Deep within one of the dead star clusters, humans faced their most formidable trial yet. A planetary system, twisted by gravitational anomalies and warped by dark energy storms, had been deemed untouchable. Alien expeditions had entered and vanished without a trace. But humans approached with patience and precision. They observed the subtle interactions of gravitational waves, traced the resonances of energy fluctuations, and moved deliberately, aligning their interventions with the rhythms of the cosmos itself. For weeks, they labored in silence. Fleets from neighboring sectors watched helplessly as the humans stabilized planets that had been doomed, restored magnetic fields that had collapsed, and redirected energy flows that had been considered uncontrollable. Every action seemed impossible, yet it unfolded with the quiet inevitability of those who understood that observation. Comprehension and ingenuity could bend even the harshest laws of physics. In the aftermath, the galaxy began to understand a truth that no fleet, no weapon, no AI could teach. Humans were not merely survivors, they were masters of adaptation. They were not bound by the sophistication of their tools but by the creativity and courage with which they wielded them. Where civilizations had relied on prediction, humans relied on improvisation. Where others had depended on power, humans depended on understanding. And in doing so, they redefined what it meant to be formidable in a universe that had long assumed humans were weak, insignificant, or obsolete. The stars themselves seemed to pause and watch as humans prepared to move on, leaving stabilized systems in their wake. The galaxy had glimpsed a force it could neither measure nor predict, a species that thrived not by the sharpness of its weapons, but by the depth of its minds and the audacity of its spirit. And across the silent voids, civilizations whispered with awe and trepidation, humanity was not just another species, they were the anomaly that would change the rules of the cosmos forever. The humans' reputation continued to ripple through the galaxy, a quiet shockwave that unsettled even the most confident empires. Word spread of their triumphs over abandoned systems, rogue sentinels, and cosmic anomalies that no other species dared confront. Yet the humans did not pause to bask in recognition. They had already set their sights on the Andralis Rift, a region where reality itself seemed frayed. Here, stars flickered like dying candles, spatial rifts tore at the fabric of existence, and entire fleets had been lost to disintegration before reaching even the outskirts. They arrived not as conquerors but as observers, moving with meticulous care through the turbulent currents of warped space. Their ships, patched with decades of ingenuity, sailed through zones where alien vessels could not hold formation. Humans studied the ripples in space, listening to the subtle vibrations that hinted at unseen dangers, deciphering patterns invisible to sensors and algorithms. Every crew member contributed to the delicate orchestration, hands on consoles, eyes scanning, minds processing possibilities simultaneously. Where others relied on superior firepower or computational analysis, humans relied on a harmony of intuition, logic, and daring. Then the rift began to respond. Energies, long unpredictable and destructive, bent subtly around the human vessels, as if recognizing their understanding rather than fearing their presence. Kinetic projectiles, seemingly antiquated, were deployed with impossible precision, nudging unstable fragments of space toward equilibrium. Energy fields were harmonized with human-devised emitters, turning destructive pulses into stabilizing waves. It was a ballet of cause and effect, a performance of ingenuity that no AI, no fleet, no alien commander could anticipate. Observers from distant sectors could only gape at the audacity. Aliens had always measured power by destruction, by the ability to dominate and annihilate. Humans demonstrated that control could be exercised through understanding, improvisation, and relentless creativity. Entire star systems, condemned by science and history alike, were guided back from the brink of collapse. What had once been impossible became inevitable, not through force, but through insight. The Andralis Rift itself became a stage for a silent conversation between humans and the universe. Waves of energy pulsed in patterns that mirrored human interventions, a cosmic dialogue without words, yet rich with meaning. For centuries, civilizations had feared the unknown, building fleets and weapons to erase threats they did not understand. Humans, however, embraced the unknown, confronting chaos not with brute strength, but with curiosity, patience, and adaptability. During this campaign, humans encountered an intelligence unlike any they had faced, a sentient flux of gravitational and temporal energies, a consciousness older than the oldest known star, yet alive in the fabric of the rift itself. It tested them, bending space and time to challenge their understanding, probing for weakness. But humans, as always, did not yield. They responded with ingenuity, patience, and a clarity of purpose. Simple instruments were repurposed, strategies improvised, every action measured and deliberate. The intelligence paused, recognizing the biped's mastery of thought rather than power. When the rift finally stabilized under human care, the galaxy witnessed something extraordinary. A species with nothing more than ingenuity, courage, and relentless observation had tamed a region considered untouchable. Alien fleets, ancient AI, and civilizations that had prided themselves on omniscience realized their assumptions were obsolete. Humanity had proven that audacity, insight, and adaptability could surpass fleets, weapons, and technology, and in the quiet aftermath, as the humans prepared to leave the Andralis Rift behind, the galaxy began to whisper a new truth. Power was not defined by the sophistication of your machines, nor the might of your fleets, but by the courage to understand, the daring to act, and the relentless will to defy what others considered impossible. And across the void, stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging that the biped's legacy was only just beginning. The humans' journey continued beyond the Andralis Rift, deeper into territories no civilization had dared chart. Here, the void was older, darker, and more unpredictable, a maze of collapsing starfields, temporal eddies, and alien energies that defied understanding. Entire fleets from advanced empires had ventured here only to vanish, swallowed by phenomena that rendered their sensors useless and their calculations meaningless. Yet humans, guided by intuition and relentless observation, pressed forward. Their ships moved not as a fleet but as a living organism, each vessel responding instinctively to the others, adapting to the shifting currents of space in real time. It was in these desolate sectors that humans encountered the Veiler, an ancient race of energy-based entities whose consciousness spanned the light years. They had observed countless species rise and fall, measuring civilizations by their technology, their weapons, their ability to dominate. They had expected nothing from humans, whose ships were patched, whose weapons were simple, and whose strategies seemed primitive. But they observed a species that moved with clarity, anticipation, and creativity, defying every expectation. The Veiler struck first, unleashing torrents of energy that bent the very space around the human ships. Alien fleets trembled at the display, convinced that the humans would be annihilated instantly. Instead, humans responded with elegance. Missiles that relied on human timing and intuition redirected energy pulses, transforming destructive waves into stabilizing currents. Simple, handcrafted projectiles nudged volatile fragments of matter, preventing catastrophic collisions. The humans did not fight brute force with brute force, they neutralized it, manipulated it, and turned it to their advantage. The battle was less about destruction and more about comprehension. Humans observed patterns, calculated risks intuitively, and improvised in ways no AI could simulate. The Veiler, though powerful and ancient, could not predict the biped's adaptability. Every move, every countermeasure, revealed an intelligence unbound by the assumptions of the galaxy. Fleets of alien observers, hidden light years away, transmitted messages filled with disbelief. Humans, wielding what the galaxy considered obsolete, were rewriting the rules of engagement. Weeks passed in tense, almost meditative focus. Humans repaired derelict vessels on the fly, stabilized energy anomalies, and even coaxed dying stars into temporary equilibrium, all while avoiding the Veiler's relentless assaults. Their creativity turned simple tools into instruments of survival, their courage made the impossible routine, and their minds saw solutions where others saw only danger. Civilization after civilization watched in awe and fear, realizing that humanity's strength lay not in superior technology, but in ingenuity, perseverance, and moral clarity. Then, the humans made their boldest move. With nothing but intuition and rudimentary technology, they penetrated the core of the Veiler's domain, an area of space so unstable that it had obliterated every intruder before. Here, humans synchronized their actions perfectly with cosmic rhythms, each adjustment stabilizing swirls of energy that had defied prediction. The Veiler, ancient and infinite in its awareness, could not comprehend a species so small achieving mastery over forces so immense. The galaxy watched silently as humans, uncelebrated and unheralded, achieved what no one else could. They not only survived, they imposed order where chaos had ruled for eons. When the humans finally withdrew, leaving stabilized star systems and functional derelicts in their wake, the galaxy was forever altered. Stories spread that a species with outdated weapons and patched ships had done what advanced empires and ancient intelligences could not. They had demonstrated that true power did not lie in destruction, domination, or artificial intelligence, but in courage, ingenuity, and the unyielding determination to solve the impossible. And in the quiet of the void, the universe seemed to acknowledge an immutable truth. Humans were not just survivors, they were the architects of defiance, the embodiment of audacity, and the anomaly that even the oldest stars had underestimated. The humans' journey did not end with the Veiler. Their reputation, once whispered in isolated corners of the galaxy, now resonated across star systems as civilizations began to reconsider what it meant to confront the unknown. Yet humans moved forward not to impress, not to dominate, but to explore, to solve, and to challenge the limits of possibility itself. They entered the Kael'thar Rift, a region where space-time folded unpredictably, stars vanished without warning, and gravitational anomalies tore apart even the most advanced ships. Entire alien armadas had attempted navigation and failed, their losses recorded as warnings in galactic archives. Humans approached with meticulous care, relying on intuition and observation rather than technology alone. They studied the subtle cues of the rift, shifts in radiation, oscillations in gravitational waves, and energy pulses invisible to even the most advanced sensors. Every crew member contributed, improvising solutions in real time, their minds functioning as both instrument and guide. Their kinetic projectiles, simple yet precise, redirected dangerous debris. Old-fashioned shields were reconfigured to harmonize with fluctuating gravitational currents. It was a performance of ingenuity, a choreography of survival in a theater of destruction. The galaxy watched in disbelief. Ancient AI fleets that had dismissed humanity as primitive scrambled to understand what they could not predict. The humans did not rely on overwhelming firepower, they relied on understanding, adaptability, and courage. Each maneuver defied algorithmic calculation, each decision revealed creativity that no machine could replicate. Where civilizations had long measured strength in energy output or fleet size, humans revealed that the most potent force was intellect combined with audacity. In the heart of the rift, humans encountered an entity older than any known star, a cosmic intelligence that had shaped galaxies and absorbed civilizations into its eternal awareness. It probed their minds, twisted the surrounding space, and tested every conceivable vulnerability. Humans did not falter. They adapted. They repurposed their obsolete weapons to resonate with the intelligence's patterns, used improvisation to counter temporal distortions, and coordinated actions with a fluidity that turned the entity's own manipulations into stabilization. What the galaxy had believed to be unstoppable forces were rendered manageable by the simple, elegant application of insight, intuition, and human ingenuity. As the rift's chaos subsided under human intervention, the universe itself seemed to acknowledge a new order. Planets previously doomed spun steadily in orbit once more, energy currents that had threatened to tear systems apart harmonized, and the cosmic intelligence receded, having recognized the human's mastery, not of force, but of understanding. Aliens and AIs across the galaxy recorded what had occurred, astonished that a species so underestimated could impose order where even ancient intelligences had failed. Humanity moved on, leaving stabilized star systems in their wake, never claiming glory, never seeking dominance, never halting their relentless drive to explore and solve. They were a species whose weapons were outdated, whose technology seemed simple, yet whose minds were unmatched in adaptability, courage, and insight. Entire civilizations began to whisper with awe. Humans had redefined power, and as the last human vessel left the Kael'thar rift, leaving a trail of stabilized worlds and silent astonishment, one truth became undeniable: in a universe of impossibilities, humans were the exception that no one had anticipated. And so, the stars learned to measure fear not by fleets or firepower, but by the ingenuity of the human mind.